You guys know YouGov very generously supports the Business of Esports weekly news show. They produce the absolute best data on games, gamers, esports fans all around the world. The benefit of having Ben here is we can showcase that. And I know, Ben, I'm going to bring it on the screen here. You guys have done recently a report, which everyone can and should go download. I believe it is linked from yougov.com/BOE. If it's not, we'll make sure to have it up there. But it is called Unlocking the Metaverse, and it's your latest report. It's an analysis into the UK and US attitudes about the metaverse.
Half of all consumers have heard of the metaverse as a concept. And on the next slide, we'll see well, what do they really think that is? But no surprise, I think, is that younger generations are more likely to indicate awareness of the metaverse. So I don't think there's any big aha moments here, but putting some numbers to those.
Ben, I thought one thing interesting on this slide was there's not like a precipitous drop off in awareness until you get to 55 plus. Did anyone else think that was interesting? Right? Like you would think awareness is only 12 and 13-year-olds. The reality here, well, not 12, 18 to 20, but the awareness stays pretty consistent until you hit 55 plus, which I thought was interesting. Just how buzzy it is.
So interest in the metaverse, just some kind of demographic differences. Again, really in the US in particular, being driven by 18 to 44-year-olds. This was an 18 plus study. So I think we did this among teens. We'd see interest much higher as well. Women in the US are as interested in the metaverse as men in the UK. US interest is just higher, and that's a same across all demos. This is where I think it starts to get more interesting. So for among those who said they are aware of it, 55% or whatever it was in the last chart, 45% of them say that they're fairly confident or very confident that they can explain what the metaverse is in the US. The rest of this, I think we're going to go through, is going to be US only. But in general, Americans are ahead of the curve compared to Britons on understanding what the metaverse is and their interest in doing different things within the metaverses as they may come to be.
USA. No?
Yeah, this speaks to US confidence in general.
That's true too. We asked the question, which of the following do you expect metaverse to resemble most closely? And I thought it stood out that Americans, are more likely to say it's a kind of a new version of a social media platform. Interactivity with people is a big draw into the metaverse, more than just social cooperative type games.
To me, when I looked at this before the show, I thought this slide was particularly interesting because most people's current experience with the metaverse, I would argue, are through virtual meetings like Zoom, which is one of the lowest ones here, and social media, right? And VR is probably something that the fewest people actually have experience for. So it's interesting to see the expectation versus what actually the metaverse encompasses, all these different dynamics. I think it's also partially maybe that people don't realize that when you're in a Zoom, when you're in a meeting like that, that's an element of digital business, right? That's going to be part of the metaverse one day, a huge part.
Yeah. The trialists and the curious. So trialists are people who said they've already been in the metaverse. You can see here that early adopters or early trialists is a lot higher in the US, with 15% of Gen Pop adults saying that they have experienced something in the metaverse. And then that said, there's 2/3 of Britons are curious. They haven't been in, but they are interested in trying something, versus 51% of Americans. So Americans just a little bit further down the funnel in terms of trying things out. But overall, the combination of those two, you're looking at a pretty similar size of the population that are interested in adopting or have already into the metaverse.
It's interesting because the US is sort of heavier at the extremes, right? They're more likely to have already tried it, but they're also more likely to completely reject it.
I think by age, you see a lot of that come out. I think some of this is not surprising. Trialists, they skew more heavily male, they skew younger, and they do tend to have kind of a higher household income, which is consistent with the, even more hardcore gamers as like a group. Now, the curious people, they are a bit older, but it does cover a full range. I mean, I think of like, and if he's listening, I think of my dad, it's kind of like someone who maybe wouldn't know a point of entry into the metaverse right now is someone who is, a sci-fi guy and would definitely be curious to see what it is, but doesn't really know how to get in. We just look at some kind of attitudinal differences of trialists, and we see like a really high over index on things that are branded, of playing social games already, very much early tech adopters. That's not surprising. High index on cryptocurrency, understanding and interest of it. So I think, it's very much in line with kind of that core gamer and crypto investor overlap when it comes to the early adopters for the metaverse. I think the curious folks, as I kind of like took a step back and looked the whole report and try to digest it. I think for them, it's more like they want to see the technology and the applications develop a bit further before they're going to come in. They are very much interested in brand innovation and also having like some of the best technologies and things, in their pockets and in their lives. And I think they're waiting to see like the practical reasons to get into the metaverse, and that's going to really draw them in, but they're like waiting for it. And it's a huge population of individuals. So I think this just talks to the tipping point that, Web3 and the metaverse is waiting for. Generally, though, Americans seem to have a better understanding at the moment of kind of the commercial potential of the metaverse. So there's things like, you can buy and sell things there, understanding that cryptocurrency and decentralized currencies will be kind of part of those transactions. And also that you can earn money and perhaps even make a living in the metaverse. Were things that Americans were ahead of on agreeing to those statements. There is, a third of people who really feel that it's being built and controlled by Facebook. So for better or worse, that is the perception.
I mean, that's kind of brilliant, right? That a rebrand accomplishes that so quickly, that you already have basically this much mind share.
Have you guys started seeing the ads, the new meta ads that are like just,
No.
all around your avatar and the things you can do in the metaverse? I mean, I'll keep my opinions out of it, but it's interesting. It's happening.
This I thought was interesting, Ben. Like why people try the metaverse or why they give it their first try. Media driven primarily, but 18% it says because I have to use it for my work/job, which I find fascinating because again, like up until recently, most people would not have considered a Zoom call going into the metaverse, right? And I'm curious how much of that is in that 18%. And the 23% that say I buy something in the real world that has some incentive to go into the metaverse, way higher than I would have expected.
Yeah, so I mean, bear in mind, we're talking about the 15% of Gen Pop who have tried the metaverse. But about a quarter of them saying that there was some incentive from the real world. So I don't know if that's NFTs or virtual experience, like we've seen by Samsung and Vans and many others in like Roblox. Yeah, that stood out to me too. And also the one about using it for work or job, like how many people are actually involved with making these things or marketing type actions within the metaverse already, or what else are people doing there for their job?
We're not going to go through the whole thing today, but I mean, Ben, thank you for highlighting some of these things. I will put the link again in the chat, guys, to yougov.com/BOE to go check it out. You're welcome to reach out to me or to Jimmy especially, or to anyone on the panel, including Ben. If you want access to the report, we're happy to send it to you. There should be a link at yougov.com/BOE, but if there isn't, we can send the link to the YouGov website where you can download it, or we'll send it to you directly.